Have you ever looked around at work and thought, why am I doing this again? Maybe you are the person who always takes the meeting notes. You update the spreadsheet. You follow up on the unanswered emails. You organize the meeting. You finish the report. And when someone else doesn't complete their part of a project, somehow you become the person who quietly steps in and gets it done. Because you are responsible. Because you care about the outcome. Because you don't want the team to fail. And perhaps because you know that if you don't do it, it might not get done. But eventually you start thinking, why am I working harder because someone else isn't doing their share? Today, I want to talk about dealing with slackers at work. But I want to start by challenging the word slacker, because sometimes the person who appears to be slacking isn't lazy at all. They may actually be incredibly ambitious. They may be highly productive. They may volunteer for the strategic project, the presentation to senior leadership, or the initiative that will give them visibility. What they don't want to do is the grunt work, the documentation, the scheduling, the follow-up, updating the tracker, taking the meeting notes, preparing the routine report. They recognize that those activities take time away from work that might advance their career. And here's the problem. The grunt work still needs to get done. When one person avoids it, the work doesn't magically disappear. It moves to somebody else. And very often it moves to the dependable person who notices that something hasn't been done and quietly takes care of it. This is where leadership becomes important. We cannot allow willingness to determine workload. If Sarah always volunteers to take the meeting notes, Sarah should not automatically become the permanent meeting note taker. If Maria always remembers to update the project tracker, that doesn't mean updating the tracker should forever become Maria's responsibility. And if you are the person who always notices what needs to be done, your competence should not sentence you to doing everyone else's work. There is actually research behind this. Researchers Linda Babcock, Maria Recalde, Lise Westerlund, and Lori Weingart studied what are called low promotability tasks. These are necessary tasks that help an organization function, but may not contribute very much to the career advancement of the person doing them. Their research found that women were more likely than men to volunteer for these types of tasks, more likely to be asked to do them, and more likely to accept when asked. In one experimental setting, women volunteered about 34% of the time, compared with 23% for men. That matters for women in leadership. Think about your own workday. Who takes the notes? Who schedules the follow-up meeting? Who organizes the retirement party? Who helps onboard the new employee? Who cleans up the presentation? Who volunteers for the committee nobody else wants? Who notices that nobody followed up and sends the email? If the answer is consistently you, I want you to consider whether your helpfulness has become an expectation. Because every hour you spend doing work that someone else could reasonably share is an hour you are not spending on strategic planning, professional development, innovation, networking, mentoring, or other work that may have greater impact on your career. So what do? The first strategy is incredibly simple. Divide the work. Do not say, we all need to work together and get this presentation finished by Friday. That sounds collaborative, but it creates ambiguity. Instead say, let's divide the presentation before we leave today. Then assign ownership. Jennifer, you have slides 1 through 5. Maria, you have the financial analysis. Nicole, you have the recommendations. I will complete the executive summary and final review. And everything needs to be in the shared document by Wednesday at noon. Now everybody knows exactly what they own. A useful formula is this: owner, deliverable, deadline, definition of done. Who owns it? What exactly are they responsible for? When is it due? And what does completed actually mean? That last part is important because you can tell someone, please finish the monthly report by Thursday. They can send you a half-completed spreadsheet on Thursday and technically say, I finished it. Instead say, the monthly report is due Thursday at noon. Completed means the data has been validated, the variance analysis is included, the executive summary is written, and the final document is uploaded to the shared folder. Now there is very little ambiguity. The second strategy is accountability. And accountability is not micromanagement. Micromanagement is constantly asking someone how they are doing their work. Did you start? How much have you done? What are you working on right now? Accountability is different. Accountability says, we agreed that this would be completed by Friday. Is anything preventing you from meeting that commitment? One of the easiest ways to create accountability is to build it into the normal workflow. For example, assign deliverables Monday. Have a brief progress check Wednesday. Final deliverables Friday. At the Wednesday meeting, you might simply say, let's go around quickly. Tell me what you own, where it stands, and whether anything is preventing you from completing it by Friday. Now, accountability isn't personal, it is simply how the team works. The third strategy is probably the hardest for high performers. Stop rescuing people. Imagine your coworker was supposed to complete part of a report. It is Thursday afternoon. The report is due Friday morning. Her section isn't done. You know you could finish it in an hour, and you think, it will just be easier if I do it. So you do. The report gets submitted. Your boss is happy. Your coworker experiences virtually no consequence for not completing her work, and you have just taught the system something. You will rescue it. Next month, the same thing happens. Instead, try saying, your section of the report is still outstanding, and we need it completed before tomorrow's deadline. What is your plan for getting it finished? If she says, can you just do it? You're faster at this, you can say, I'm happy to answer a question if you're stuck, but I need you to complete the portion assigned to you. That is not being mean. That is returning responsibility to the person who owns it. And this is where boundaries become important. A boundary is not telling another adult what they must do. A boundary is deciding what you will do. Instead of saying, stop giving me your work at the last minute, say, I won't be able to routinely take over assignments on the day they're due. Instead of saying, you need to be more responsible, say, I'm happy to collaborate, but I won't be taking over deliverables assigned to another team member. And instead of saying, stop asking me to fix your presentations, try, I'm happy to review the presentation and give you feedback, but I don't have the capacity to rewrite it. Notice how calm those statements are. There is no attack. There is no accusation. There is simply clarity. Now, before you label someone a slacker, there is another conversation you need to have. Ask what is getting in the way. There is a big difference between someone who refuses to do their work and someone who doesn't know how to do it. There is a difference between an accountability problem and a capacity problem. Maybe someone has conflicting priorities. Maybe they were never properly trained. Maybe they misunderstood the deadline. Maybe they are carrying far more work than you realize. Instead of saying, you never get your work done on time, try saying, I've noticed that the last 3 deliverables came in after the agreed upon deadline. I want to understand what's getting in the way. That gives the person an opportunity to explain while still acknowledging the pattern. If someone tells you, I just have too much going on, don't immediately dismiss that. Say, let's look at your current responsibilities and determine what needs to be prioritized. If someone genuinely has 60 hours of work and 40 hours available, you have a capacity problem. If they have reasonable responsibilities but repeatedly choose not to complete them, you may have an accountability or performance problem. Those require very different solutions. And there is evidence that workload matters. A systematic review and meta-analysis examining 25 studies found that factors including high workload, high demands, low workplace support, low reward, and low job control were associated with greater emotional exhaustion. So when you repeatedly carry someone else's work, the problem isn't simply that you're irritated. You are adding demands to your own workload. And eventually resentment can develop. You start noticing everything. They take a long lunch, you notice. They leave early, you notice. They say they're overwhelmed, and you think, you're overwhelmed? When you reach that point, resentment may be telling you that a conversation or boundary should have happened much earlier. So here's one question I want you to begin asking yourself. Am I solving problems that belong to other adults? If nobody volunteers, do you immediately volunteer? If somebody misses a deadline, do you automatically finish the assignment? If a meeting is disorganized, do you organize it? If nobody takes notes, do you take them? If something isn't perfect, do you fix it? Eventually, competence can become a trap. Everyone learns, don't worry, she'll handle it. Instead of rescuing, start coaching. If someone says, I don't know how to finish this analysis, don't automatically say, send it to me. Say, show me where you're stuck. If someone says, I don't know what to write, don't say, I'll draft it. Say, tell me the 3 main points you want to communicate. And if someone says, I'm not going to finish this by Friday, resist immediately saying, I'll take half. Ask, what needs to happen between now and Friday for you to meet the deadline? Coaching provides support while keeping responsibility where it belongs. Finally, leaders need to protect their high performers. If Sarah finishes early, don't automatically give it to Sarah. If Sarah is organized, don't automatically ask Sarah. If Sarah never complains, don't assume Sarah can handle another project. Eventually, Sarah may look around and realize, my reward for working hard is doing everyone else's work. That is not a sustainable way to manage talented people. So the next time you find yourself getting frustrated because someone isn't pulling their weight, don't immediately work harder. Pause and ask, who owns this? Have expectations been clearly defined? Is this a capacity problem or an accountability problem? Have we divided the less desirable work fairly? Am I coaching this person or am I rescuing them? And am I doing something simply because everyone knows that eventually I will? Then use your words. This belongs to you and I need you to complete it. I can help you think through the problem, but I can't take over the assignment. Let's divide these responsibilities so the same person isn't always doing the administrative work. We agreed this would be completed by Friday. What is your plan for meeting that commitment? And perhaps one of the most important, I don't have the capacity to add this to my workload. If I need to take this on, let's decide which of my existing priorities should come off. Accountability is not unkind. Boundaries are not hostility. Clear expectations are not micromanagement. A strong leader creates an environment where people can ask for help, admit mistakes, learn, and feel supported. But a strong leader also creates an environment where everyone's contribution matters and people are expected to follow through on their commitments. You don't have to become less compassionate, you don't have to become confrontational, and you certainly don't have to become the workplace police. You simply have to stop believing that good leadership means quietly doing whatever everyone else leaves behind. Because the goal isn't for you to become better at carrying the team. The goal is to build a team where everyone carries their share. Read my full article at powerofpeacefulness.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, and grab my free leadership workbook, 5 Steps to Communicate with Calm, Clarity, and Confidence at powerofpeacefulness.com. Until next time, take a deep breath, embrace the present moment, and keep walking your path to peace.